in 2 separate tweets, and I just want to cover what is going on. First, the next banner features Basalt and Rodion as nails, so we can assume that they will be mainly blunt and pierce, and probably have a weakness to blunt, as they are basically the same enemies, the Templars, that we fight in Chapter 3. Massault has some of the best egos in the game with a few weaker identities and one strong identity, namely Double O Massault. So this could be a very good thing for Massault, where he gets another good identity and then added on with his ego, it could become very strong. Similar to these enemies we fought, we should expect that both of them apply Nail, which would be great supports for bleed teams that run people like Triple Ryoshu and Double O Honglu. With Nail, they could actually become cores of bleed teams, as Nails help to actually stack and maintain the bleed stacks on targets. So a very quick preview into their kits. I was right that they are mostly bleed oriented, but these coins also bode well for their clashing ability, as generally having more coins helps you with clashes and winning them. So Rodion has Nails and Paralyze with a good passive that triggers with a bonus if she kills, and without the bonus when she doesn't. So having consistent passives are great for identities. Her skill tree has potential to be extremely nuts because it has 4 coins, but the hit requirement for bleed is probably a weakness. I think we will still have to see the numbers before we can judge whether this move could be good, because we have people like Massault with pretty low coin power, so we will still need to see the numbers. Yep, so Neil having the ability to maintain bleed count. Neil can maintain the bleed count applied by the rest of the team, and free damage from Fanatic means she is very DPS oriented. The real question is whether her base power will be good for clashing purposes. And unfortunately for her art, I don't feel too much about it. It's just alright. But Massault though, whew, he looks so good in his art. Skill-wise, it's interesting as the first skill lowers his stagger threshold, making him a lot harder to stagger. So this actually makes him a lot tankier than some other tanks, as he is one of the few characters that can lower his own stagger threshold. 2 coins is great for all his skills, as you will probably win clashes if you have more coins. All his effects are on hit, so that's really good. It's very consistent. If he's tanky and slow, he can also be doing one-sided attacks, which would mean he will be getting all these on-hit effects doing a lot of damage. Otherwise, we have to look at the base numbers again, as well as the coin power, to determine whether he's strong. His passive is good, but we will need to see the X value for HP requirement and the cost of this move, because usually passives you need to trigger them by chaining a certain element of the move before they can be active. His kit, on the other hand, looks pretty damn strong. He has nail, bind, attack down, and even self-healing. This man has great potential. We just need to hope that his base powers are great. And if that is true, then he is probably going to be very, very strong. Probably one of the best Massaults we have in the game. He also has a very funky counter. It's the only one of its kind from my research that has a combat start effect. We will see what this means, as they are reworking tanks in the future, and we will have to see what that does for him. And also, notably, he is Massault, and all his egos are very good, so that will definitely bump him up to a high tier, regardless of numbers. And ultimately, for these 2 characters, we would still need to see the numbers before we can judge them. But they have the potential. The potential is there. The coins are there. The damage is definitely there with multiple coins, and they have all great skills. The kits themselves apply bleed, apply nail, apply paralyze. All these are great utility and possibly become the next core for bleed. And my prediction for the next content is that we should be getting enemies with pierce weakness, because we had slash weakness, we've had blunt weakness, but we don't have pierce weakness yet, and these enemies do mostly pierce with a little bit of blunt. So if we follow the gacha logic of releasing the content to beat challenges, this is probably the trend that's going to happen. Of course, this is just a theory. And I also want to remind everyone that you do not need to pull anyone in this game. It's free to play, and you should pull for your favorites first before anything else. But these guys have great potential from what I see. When the characters are released, I will review them again and I will rate them in the tier list that I will be posting after this video. So moving on to some of the changes. Skill slots are the actions that you gain per turn, so being able to get them between waves is a nice change. Staggered units not having zero speed is quite interesting, and we will have to see how that affects combat. The new potency changes seem to be targeted towards poise specifically. It enables them to easily stack poise for characters that need to do things like skill 1 into skill 2. For example, Yi-Sang can now do Striker Stance into heal turn and he will gain 3 poise with 3 count. Last time it will not work like that. Besides that, we also have some UI changes, and funnily enough, the most major thing that's being changed here is that you can no longer bring 6 sinners with you. So the old videos of mine where we brought 6 sinners, you can't do them anymore. So if you want to get your EX clears now with 6 sinners, you should go and do them now. Otherwise, you'll be missing out. If you need to know how to do it, I'll be putting the video link below, and then you can read it yourself. As for the rest of this, you can just kind of read it yourself. They're all great changes, of course. They're all very good quality of life UI changes. Now for the changes roadmap for the game's future, it is quite spicy. So things like Sin Resonance can now boost your offense and defense levels, and this is significant because these stats affect your clashing. So this potentially could add one extra clash power to your clashes. So it makes getting match 3 a lot more significant than it is now. Right now it's only damage increase and only very minor increases. So this could be very good. Next, we got the defense skill changes. In summary, the tanks will be able to finally redirect attacks to themselves, which they are not able to do now. Formerly, it passed the attack to the next person. So, for example, Honglu's getting hit, he passes the attack to Yisang to take it, which is very not what you want. You rather have the character with the good defense skill take the hit. So people like tanks with very good defenses, like evasion, will enjoy this buff for sure. But do remember that it still depends on your speed because you need to be faster than the opponent's move in order to capture that move on your defense. And the third one is the big one, and is the reason why number 2 was a pretty big buff, and that is because guard and evade now scale with defense levels. Right now our defense skills are fixed numbers, but in the future we can finally have more stronger defense clash characters, and that is a huge buff to tank characters with very high defense, as they would have an advantage in winning clashes with defense. So this could totally change how tank characters are used in the future, because they will finally be able to use their defense skills to clash other people. All right, then the fourth change is that they are also changing the staggers for the tanks, but not really the offense oriented. And that is another buff for tanks. So are you seeing the trend here? Tanks are actually being changed into tanky characters, so their stagger thresholds will be lesser apparently, and they will also make it a bit wider compared to the offense-oriented character. So now they will actually become tanks and won't get staggered and then take huge amounts of damage because they are staggered. And I think that is the direction that Project wants to go. They want to make tanks into actual tanks. And lastly, it is a small change, but pretty good for multi-coins. So what happens is that multi-coin clashes now do more damage because you win more clashes, you get more damage. But at the same time, if the enemy wins multi-coin clashes against you, they too will deal more damage to you. So it's about evenish for both sides. So it's both a good and a bad buff. But at the same time, I guess it does make multi-coin clashes a bit more rewarding to do. It is a small buff to multi-coin clashes, but I don't think it's pretty game-breaking anyway. So ultimately, tank characters will definitely be having a good laugh when these patches hit, and it'll be very interesting to see what kind of fancy team builds we can use with this. That is all for now. Thanks for watching. I totally forgot to mention, but uh, these changes also came with a Yisang buff slash nerf. So what happened was they fixed the bug where Yisang was getting 50% more damage on all damage that he dealt on skill 3. And in exchange for this, he got the ability to get 3 poise count next turn if he wins a clash with a 2-coin 7 to 9 range. So overall, I think that Yi Sang got gutted with this patch, and I hope that Poise will see some buffs. Otherwise, this is just very sad for Yi Sang 000 in general.